for Zion's sake, I will not hold my peace. And for Jerusalem's sake, I will not rest, until her righteousness goes forth as brightness, and her salvation as a lamp that burns. Zion forever.
Shalom and welcome to our program. I'm Miles Weiss.
And I'm Catherine Weiss, and we want to welcome you to our series, Zion Forever. We have taken you to the city of David, the Temple Mount, and we're winding the bend today.
That's right. This is the last program in the series. We've spent 8 programs establishing not just the biblical reality, but the archaeological evidence, the historical evidence, and the news that in fact there is a Jewish presence in the land. It has been there for thousands of years, as one writer said, from time immemorial, and it can't be denied, and yet it is being denied in the world media, and the assault against Jerusalem is ongoing.
Well, you always have a counterfeit when you have something real, and we're going to see a little bit of the counterfeit faith that's pressing against the reality of the Judeo-Christian values that God has ordained for us to have. You know, there's nothing like the golden rule to rule over us all. Don't you think, Miles?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to an actual dictatorship, but there's only one dictator that I would trust, and that's the King of Kings, Melech HaMlachim, Yeshua HaMashiach. In this segment, we're going to be hearing from a spokesman for Islam, so I'm going to ask you to remember what 2 Peter 1:19 says, that we have a more sure word of prophecy, a reliable word of prophecy. That is the Holy Bible. But we're going to hear from the other view, because there is an eschatology that Muslims adhere to that is in opposition to the eschatology or the teaching of the end times that we see in the Bible. And so I want you to put on your spirit of discernment, ask the Lord to help you to understand what's going on in this segment as we go to a spokesman for Islam near the Temple Mount.
When Umar ibn al-Khattab entered the holy city and opened it peacefully, there was no trace related to the Jews, not a temple or anything else in the city of Jerusalem. Therefore, for us as Muslims, when the city was opened peacefully, there was no monument related to the Jews in this location. Al-Aqsa Mosque is considered holy because it is part of the Muslim doctrine, and it is mentioned in the Holy Quran and the homeland of Isra and Mi'raj. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, prayed with the prophets in this mosque. So the holiness of this place is because it is part of the doctrine and is mentioned in the Holy Quran.
Al-Aqsa Mosque is the
Al-Aqsa Mosque is the 144 dunums area, and what lies in between the 4 walls, this is Al-Aqsa Mosque, including all the mosque and everything inside related to it.
الحائط الغربي اللي هو حائط البراق.
The western wall, which is Al-Buraq wall, is an Islamic Waqf based on the international court decisions. In other words, the Muslims have allowed the Jews to pray in this location. We are not against the Jewish religion. We respect the Jewish religion, but we do not respect who claims that the temple lies in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Will they build the temple over the Muslims' doctrine? This is impossible.
Well, our friend sounds very sure for someone representing an ideology that has been here for 1,400 years, and you're looking at a dome that is built on a Christian church that is sitting on Roman pillars that is based on Jewish land. That is land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So as we go through the historicity of this, and we look at the archaeological evidence, and we see the way the arc of history is moving, it's important to know that there will be other views. In fact, let's go to another man representing Islam to speak a little bit more about his view of the area.
So when you come, maybe if you see in Destiny Night in Ramadan, it is filled with people. All the 144,000 square meters are filled with nearly 300,000 people praying. It's written in Quran, if you pray in the Aqsa Mosque, you will have it all rak'ah, which is when you go down to the ground. It's here in the Aqsa Mosque. It's like 1,000 rak'ah in a normal mosque.
We asked this young man to describe the process of prayer at the mosque.
First, like we read from the Quran, or what we are memorizing from the Quran. Second, then we pray to God, Allah. We speak like He's in front of us. Yes. We want your forgiveness. We want your mercy. And then, in the end, we say the Ibrahim prayers, which is we say our word with Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That there is only one God, and there's only one, and Muhammad is the only prophet. And we say the Ibrahim prayers, which is we say that please God, pray upon our prophet like you prayed upon Ibrahim and his family, and like the same thing 2 times. Then we do the salam, which is like we put our heads to the right first and then to the left, because in religion there's 2 angels with each person, one on your left and one on your right. One writes your goods, one writes your sins.
He writes it down?
Right, yeah. Because when you stand upon God, He has the book. You did this good, this good, this good. You have good, this good. Either you go to heaven or hell.
You really see the difference between 2 worldviews in this segment. When we've interviewed these Muslim people, you know, Miles, in Isaiah 54, it talks about that there's no weapon that is formed against us that shall prosper. Mm-hmm. And every tongue that rises against it, God will bring it to account. Because our righteousness isn't our own righteousness, but He gives us His own righteousness.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that we're not tied to a works-based paradigm or worldview. I tried it all. I tried meditating in the desert with the Buddhists. I tried yoga with the Hindus. I tried every which way to make my way to God as I understood Him, and none of it worked. I'm so grateful that God did it for me.
Amen.
By Yeshua's sacrifice. Where would we be? It's just so clear. I understand the concept. There's a Jewish concept, which is probably where the Muslims got it. There's a Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world. In other words, there's something important about our good deeds.
Right.
We need to work to better the world that we live in. But I'm so grateful that our eternal salvation is not of our own doing.
Well, there's no comparison between what the Jewish people are trying to do and what the Muslims are doing. There's just none.
Exactly. And I'm so grateful that in this grace-based worldview, that those that have received the grace of God, the Christians in the world, are awakening to their debt to the Jewish people and to Israel. And one of the most premier examples is the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. One of our dear friends is David Parsons. He's the media director for the ICEJ, and he's got such a strong testimony, such a strong view of the righteous movement that is in Zionism, birthed by God, in order to bring the Jewish people home, in order to prepare us for the coming of Messiah. Let's go to David Parsons now.
We're still working on bringing the Jews back to the land, our Aliyah operations, and of course these have been going on for more than 3 decades, but the new parts about it is where some of these Jewish people, Jewish communities are coming from, and the circumstances that they're coming from. So the Aliyah operations are still going strong. We're doing all sorts of social work throughout the land, trying to give a witness of Christian love and compassion. And one of the new areas we've really given an emphasis in recent years is helping needy Holocaust survivors, people who survived the Nazi occupation of Europe, the genocide against the Jews. They managed to survive. They're now old. They were probably children or teenagers then, and some are still falling on hard times now and trying to help them live out their lives with dignity.
It's amazing that everything you're doing is based on the Christian understanding of the Jewish history in this land and Christian obligation, Romans 15:27, to bless materially. And also, I think you might have just mentioned that you're still fishing, but the hunters may be coming. Ukraine, for example, that there are people coming here for a life that's promised.
Yes. When the Zionist movement first arose 120, 30 years ago, there were two concerns among the Jewish leaders then. One was anti-Semitism, the Russian pogroms at the time. Some of the first Jews in what is considered the modern return to Israel came from southern Russia, and some of the Russian Orthodox Christians turning on the Jews, and also the Dreyfus trial in France, a country where everyone was supposed to be equal and free and emancipated, and the Jews were probably some of the most absorbed in regular society, and yet anti-Semitism was still strong there. And then the fear of assimilation, that the Jews were going to blend in so much with the Gentiles and lose their distinction. And these were the twin pillars that on the founding of Israel, and I think they're still important today. I think some of the opponents of the return to Israel, the return to Zion, have made it a bad label, a negative label, but really it speaks of God's unchanging plan of world redemption and placing His name here, and we just have to continue to show that positive side of the return to the land, and how it's meant to have benefits for the entire world. It's just still part of that promise of God to Abraham, through you I'm going to bless all the families of the earth. And He was choosing not only a people, Abraham's descendants, but a certain land as well in order to do that.
What right does Israel have to her land? What would you say if you were asked? In this week's resource, Israel's Right to the Land, you'll read 12 astounding facts that will silence all objections. Calling it accurate, fair, and scripturally authoritative, Zola Levitt recommended this booklet written by Dr. David Hocking. Call 1-800-WONDERS or go to levitt.com.
Telling the truth about Israel and the Jewish people is just one of our passions here at Zola Levitt Ministries. We're fighting a replacement theology that robs the church of its true heritage regarding the land and the people of Israel. And our work depends on your support. So please remember to give as you're able. $1 a day can go a long way. So please click on to levitt.com or give us a call at 1-800-WONDERS. Thank you.
Well, if you've been watching our program for any time, you have seen my guest many times asking for your funds, because we know that this ministry moves forward only by your gifts of funds. Wayne Fournier, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I have been looking forward to joining you on set for so long.
Yeah.
Just to sit here and talk with you about the ministry, why we need funds, why we want to continue to ask our viewers to help us. It's very important.
It comes across that you are not just a spokesmouth, but you actually believe in what we're doing, and that really comes through. I do. I've been watching Zola for more than 10 years now, and reading, of course, all of the newsletters that come in, and wanting to get involved, because I sit at home and I watch the different news organizations talk about Israel and what's happening in the Middle East problem, as they call it, and I often just become infuriated when I hear them talk, because I know that they're not telling the truth. Or if they do, it's certainly not all of it. Yeah, that's really the case. And as someone with a history in broadcasting, you've been doing this many years.
Oh, yes.
You really know the behind-the-scenes world of the news, and you understand more than most that it's important for there to be news outlets or ministry outlets that are bringing the truth.
Exactly. I understand the concept of shaping a story before the camera ever starts rolling, I should say. I mean, that would happen so many times in the newsrooms where I worked in local news. And so I know it's even much more so in the network on the higher level. Yeah. So, yeah, to tell the truth, I'm happy to do it.
We're so glad you're part of what we're doing. It means a lot to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. What Wayne is speaking about is the reality of the bias in the media. And one of the people on the forefront of the battle against the disinformation that's going forward is Itamar Marcus. He and his small band of dedicated young men and women in Israel actually interpret the Arabic media for Israel, for the West, and even the Israeli government is listening to what Itamar Marcus has to say. We're glad to bring him to you right now. We're doing a series on Zion Forever, establishing the Jewish history of the land, the Temple Mount, City of David. And I read with interest your article I guess it was about a week ago, about Mahmoud Abbas saying that they're teaching their people that Israel exists but has no right to exist. What a difference.
Yes, it's a very big difference. The Palestinian Authority, one of the foundations of Palestinian Authority ideology, is that the Jewish people have no history in the land of Israel.
Wow.
Never were here, and therefore we are a colonial implant with no historical right to exist. This is something that is taught in the school books. It's something that appears in video clips regularly on Palestinian television. The Palestinian school books has the following words. The 1948 war ended with the greatest catastrophe in history when the Zionist gangs stole Palestine and created the State of Israel. Stole Palestine.
The Nakba.
The Nakba, yes. But the point is, Israel's creation is said to be a theft. The Palestinian, when they're speaking to foreign communities around the world today, to English speakers, they will say they're upset about Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem being in Israel's hands since 1967. To their own people, it's all of Israel that's a theft. And that's the way children are brought up, to see Israel having no right to exist.
And so currently, with the United States wavering and pulling back and being so ineffective, what do you see on the horizon for the peace process?
Whether there will be peace or not is totally in the hands of the Palestinian Authority. Israel wants peace. We wanted peace for years. Israel has shown willingness to compromise. We compromised even when we weren't sure if there was someone on the other side, and we've paid for it dearly.
Yes.
With literally thousands of casualties since 1993. But now it's clear that Yasser Arafat wasn't sincere, and that's why we paid for, with over 1,200 killed and tens of thousands injured in what they call the Intifada, which we call the terror war. And since then, under Abbas, there is no real indication that he's sincere. If he were sincere, we would see it. If he was sincere, we would see him talking to his people about real peace, about compromise, about Jewish history and the Jews having a right to exist in the State of Israel. We don't see that yet. If it would happen, we would publicize it.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you about this new mosque in Abu Ghosh. Abu Ghosh, traditionally known as a place of cooperation between Jews and Arabs, and now there's this $10 million Chechenian-funded mosque going up there. What do you think that means?
It's difficult to say. Let's see what the teachings will be there. Right now, we know that the mosques in Judea and Samaria that are under the Palestinian Authority have been a source over the years, a source of hatred, a source of demonization of Jews, a source of presenting the killing of Jews as something that's a religious act that Allah actually wants. The Hamas mosques have used the expression, that if killing a Jew is the way to get to heaven. So the mosque has potential for bad, it has potential for good. If there are people like Sheikh Palachi of Italy, who is a Muslim leader, scholar, and he will quote to you the verses in the Quran that he says show that the Islam recognized Israel's right to exist, and he claims that the Quran actually anticipates the Jewish return to the land of Israel, and that this is Israel's land. So if those were the teachings that'll happen in this mosque, that'll be wonderful, and it'll be a great step toward peace. So let's wait and see what's going to happen in the mosque.
That's a very, very hopeful statement on your part.
You have to be hopeful. That's our national anthem, Hatikva, is hope, and that hope is what created the state, and the hope will eventually bring about peace. We just don't know how soon it will be.
Itamar, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Israel is a land full of promises. You'll never be the same, so we invite you to come. It's a trip of a lifetime. We'd love you to join us.
such a concerted attack against Israel and the Jewish people. Think about the language you hear in the media. The West Bank. What is the West Bank? It's not some sandy shore of the Jordan River. They're speaking about the heartland of Israel, where the Bible took place, in Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's life, where Jesus walked, the mountains of Judea and Samaria. What about the word settler? Well, that means a resident, someone who has made aliyah or was born in the land and is restoring the ancient homeland that goes back to time immemorial.
Right. Right. They're not, you know, these people are so courageous. They have so much faith. They've made a pilgrimage coming back to the land that God prophesied that they would come back to the mountains of the Lord. You know, the world tries to minimize the presence of the Jewish people and the promises that God has for them.
It's prophetic. Yeah. And so we will be there, never to be uprooted again. It says in Amos 9:15. And the word also speaks in restoration, that the sound of laughter and joy would be heard again. And we heard it in the city of David. Let's go to our interview with Efrat, a mother in Zion at the city of David. Tell us a little bit about this place, this specific house, Beit HaMechas?
מיוחס.
מיוחס, תודה.
בית מיוחס זה בית עתיק.
Beit Meyukos is an ancient house that belonged to the family Meyukos. They are a Jerusalem family originally from Spain. We are talking about the middle of the 19th century, when all the Jews lived only between the walls of the old upper city. It was very crowded, with hunger and diseases, no medicines, and very hard to live there. The family Meyukos lived there buying and selling meat. Every morning they had to wake up very early to be at the gates when they opened to go to work, slaughter the animals, and return before the gates close at sunset. It's very hard on them. Moses Montefiore starts to move out of the walls in 1862, and the Meyukos family and a few other families too. They built their homes outside the walls, and they wrote letters to the city residents telling them that they didn't drink well water but fresh spring water. And we are growing our vegetables for ourselves. And here they started their new life around 1872. Then they lived here until the pogroms, when they had to leave the house. And this is Beit Meyukos.
Tell us how you came to the city of David.
So I was raised in Herzliya. My parents raised me to do something with meaning or to have a mission in my life. We were blessed to come here and be one of the first families to return to the city of David 23 years ago, more or less. They were looking for young couples, so we came as a young couple with a newborn baby. From then, we have been blessed to live here as one link in the chain of Jewish people. We see it as very important that we came back to the city of David 3,000 years after King David. We are raising 9 kids here. Our daughter that we brought here as a baby has married and also lives here with 2 cute children who live and play here in the city of David.
Our viewers love Israel, but they would love to hear from you how you see that this is part of the fulfillment of Tanakh and prophetic history.
I seriously feel that our life here today is connected to history and the Bible. When I am walking here, I can feel the presence of King David. I know that in this place, on this hill, most of the Bible was written. It's something I really feel every single moment. People think with time passing after 23 years that people wouldn't be excited anymore, but I'm excited every day more and more. And when I'm walking here, I know that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, 3 patriarchs, dreamed of coming here, and I'm blessed not only to come to Jerusalem, but to the city of David after 3,000 years. What is the most that I feel here? When we came here, we were 10 Jewish families with only 3 children altogether. And today in the city of David, there are hundreds of kids running and jumping. And the prophet Zechariah said there will be a time when old men and women will sit in Jerusalem with canes in their hands because they are so old, and children will be playing in the streets. We are also starting to be a little bit older. Not with canes yet, and we have to be in good physical shape here to go up and down and to stay healthy with the help of God. If you come when the children are playing, there is a lot of noise and rumble, and they are jumping and going up and down, and there is something that we experience all the time, and we feel it.
It says in the scripture that God will plant the Jewish people back in the land with his whole heart. God has a heart, he has a mind, and he has a will. And I mean, literally, he said he'll plant his feet back on the Mount of Olives.
Yes.
Let me read the scripture just in case you might not believe me. It's Jeremiah 32:44. And yea, I will rejoice over them and do them good, and I will plant them back in the land with my whole heart and with my whole soul.
That's beautiful. You know, Amos 9:15 goes along with that and says, never to be uprooted again. And we're in that time because there's been comings and goings over the millennia, but we are here now.
End of the age.
Exactly, and we're looking for the coming of Messiah. And so that's what the opposition is about. It's opposition to the Word and opposition to the author of the Word.
Yeah,
that's really what we're seeing. It goes back to the garden, goes all the way until the coming of Messiah when he sits up his kingdom, his throne in Jerusalem.
Amen.
And rules for 1,000 years from there. No wonder there's such a contest.
Enemy.
Yes.
Right.
No wonder there's such a contest over this reality of the Jewish presence in the land, the reality of the history. The Temple Mount, the City of David, two keys to the understanding of God's plan for the ages and his view towards the coming of peace on earth. We're not going to see it fully until Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace,
Right,
comes.
but it's our job to pray, and
Yes.
it's our job to stand.
Yes.
You know, when you're in the book, you have the faith for the land.
Yes.
So I encourage you to stay in the book
Yes.
and stay in faith for what God has for you and what he has for the Jewish people.
Yeah, and we need to stand with life-giving ministries that are bringing forward the truths of the Bible.
Right.
Ministries in Israel that are preaching the gospel, that are
Right.
standing with the Jewish people. To help us to bring these messages out.
Absolutely.
Because we want to continue to increase our footprint, our ability to touch this world while it is yet day. We want to keep working while it is yet
Absolutely.
day. And that's why we always end our program.
Yes.
We end this series as well with this prayer from Psalm 122, verse 6, Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Our monthly newsletter, The Levitt Letter, is free and full of insightful articles and news commentary from a messianic perspective. Visit levitt.com to find our newsletter, along with current and past programs, our television schedule, and much more.
Don't forget to order this week's resource by calling 1-800-WONDERS, or you can purchase it from our catalog at levitt.com.
Your donations to Zola Levitt Ministries help these organizations bless Israel. Please remember, Zola Levitt Ministries depends on tax-deductible donations from viewers like you. This has been a paid program by Zola Levitt Ministries.